Hey, awesome coaches out there, and anyone listening to this who wants to get healthy in this crazy modern world. I am so excited to have my good friend and also my intuitive, Muneeza Ahmed, here. We are going to dive into how Muneeza built her business, some of the strategies that she uses to tap into what her clients, her potential clients want, and most importantly, to talk about this vicious cycle of mystery illness and autoimmune that seems to not only plague us as coaches, but many of the people that we love. So, Muneeza, welcome.
Thank you, Rachel. Oh my gosh, I cannot get a smile off my face because I have known you for what seems like a lifetime, even though I think I've only known you for like 6 or 7 years. But it feels to me like we've always been together. You are a soul sister to me, and I'm smiling because we've been talking about doing this for so long and we're finally doing it. So I'm here, I'm excited, and thank you for having me on. It's just such an honor.
I know I'm terribly excited to talk about this because one, you and I are autoimmune warriors. We actually connected many years ago because we were talking about kids' health and we were talking about really changing the game for the generations to come and empowering women and moms to have the knowledge. So I want you to just tell everyone what you do in your business, even just right now, so they can get to know you and even where to find you.
Sure. So I am a medical intuitive. I call myself the intuitive medicine woman. And what that means is that I am trained as a health coach and I have a strong background in nutrition. So I coach people based on an understanding of the autoimmune, basically what I call an autoimmune cycle. There's an autoimmune cycle that we all go into. It's a vicious cycle. And I help people understand the root causes of their chronic mystery autoimmune illnesses, places where basically we've all been there. We've gone to a doctor, we've gotten a diagnosis, and then we're told we either have to take pills for life, there's no cure, or in some cases there's surgery. But most of the time it's drugs for life. If you have thyroiditis, you're being given Synthroid for life, or if you have heart disease, then you're being given Lipitor or what have you. So I work with those people who'd like to go beyond staying on a drug for the rest of their life, or work with those people who basically don't know what's going on with them because their tests were all normal and the doctor said it's in your head and they know it's not in their head. So they want to be recognized and helped because they don't feel good. And so that group of people to me are the most voiceless people because nobody really hears them. People with chronic illness don't really have a voice. And so I work to give voice to people like that and to help them figure out root causes, a plan, and how to get better. And I work with people who need to be on a budget. I work with people who don't have a budget. I work with people basically in every capacity. People who are on disability, and they're on disability because they're too sick to work and they've been on disability for 2 years and they finally found something that could help them. So that's my work. And I've, with Rachel's help, been able to create online platforms, programs. I think we've launched, Rachel, like 16 products in the last 3 years.
I think we've launched more than that.
So between online cleanses and my really big flagship intuitive detox mastery program, which is a 3-month program, and my adrenal reset program. I mean, doing that on top of seeing people 5 days a week for 8 hours a day. It's been full on because so many people are sick, and that's what gets me up in the morning. I never get tired of it because I know that people need answers, and all the ways in which we can create to give people answers to get better. Every time we do that, it's a good step and it's a good day. So
I know that so many coaches like myself, like yourself, we've searched, and relentlessly is the word. Relentlessly searched, whether it was a headache, feeling nauseous, sleep, hair falling out, skin issues, or just
Pain,
feeling chronic
neuropathy,
fatigue.
chronic pain, chronic fatigue, can't get out of bed, would rather just stay curled up, call themselves lazy, cannot figure out what's going on with them.
Stress,
Yeah,
anxiety. So
depression, anxiety, yeah, fibromyalgia, you know, it could be simple as eye floaters, acne, addiction. I mean, the brain fog, which affects so many of us and we don't even realize it. Bloating, such a common problem. It's little things that point to just bigger stuff going on.
well, and that's what I wanted you to break down, because I know for me, my massive anxiety, my adrenals were pushed to the max where they crashed, and then all these other issues happened. And I didn't even know my adrenals were weak. I feel that one of the biggest problems, as we know, in the world of health and wellness is that we don't always know the signs. We think, oh, well, it's just bloating, or I had, 5 sinus infections last year. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing. But what I heard you just say, and what I think we should define really clearly, is that many of us are walking around with these warning signs that will or can, we hope not, we hope that there are strong constitution and a lot of stress isn't in the life, so that it doesn't trigger that sign to go into disease or sickness. Can you break down what I call some of, and you always talk about it with ease like this, bloating, some of these common signals and signs that we see but are often overlooked because, oh, well, every person gets, painful periods. Every
Yes.
person.
Yeah, absolutely. I can break down like 3 top ones. All right. So the first is fatigue. And you may not want to call yourself fatigued, but because you may just be waking up and kind of not want to get out of bed. And you're like, yeah, everybody does that, because who wants to go to work, or who wants to face their day? Or reach the afternoon and there's a slight slump and you're like, I'm just going to grab my coffee and it's all good. So fatigue is the first sign of a viral illness. Fatigue is the first sign of, for example, Epstein-Barr being active in your body. And if you are not following that very closely, because often fatigue, which we call chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalopathy, ME, which is like the more severe form of chronic fatigue, or just, or adrenal fatigue, that's another name for it. If you're not following the signs of adrenal fatigue, you're basically missing out that you have a viral infection brewing in your liver. That's a first sign. Yes, I know.
Put your hand up if this has happened. And
right.
Guys, I want to just tell you, even in words of experience, I've worked with Muneeza. It means that your energy is going, and then you wake up and you feel like you got hit by a truck. And you're like, what's going on with me? Am I stressed? Am I this? Am I going crazy? Am I getting my period? And it's none of them. You check off every box, and then there's a fear that sets in. And that fear it's not that it shouldn't be there. It's that what Muneeza is saying is there is most often a reason. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't do tests. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't do whatever you're doing. Muneeza is not making a claim. She's just saying that when you know the progression and how something affects something, you can all of a sudden take your damn power back.
Yeah, absolutely. If you know this information, you can take your power back. So like I said, fatigue for most people is an earlier sign. And now it's even happening in children. Like, children are getting fatigue. And when the child tells you they're tired, you should listen instead of telling that kid, oh, you're just being lazy, or you just need to get up and do this. Or, listen. If your child repeatedly says, Mom, I'm really tired. Mom, I don't feel good. Or I just want to lay down, especially when they hit teenage years, because post-puberty, hormones kick in, and hormones can drive an underlying viral condition in your liver to kind of wake up and be active, and you may be missing it. So this is really important to know. The other thing that gets missed all the time is bloating. And people think it's just indigestion. But actually, bloating happens for 2 reasons. Either you have low hydrochloric acid in your stomach, or you have low bile, like weak bile. which is not digesting your food, so it swells up. Another reason for bloating can be when you're detoxing, it's too much toxicity, toxins trying to leave, and so there's bloat. But major reasons for bloat is low hydrochloric acid, and having a good hydrochloric acid level in your gut is your first line of defense in your immune system. So if you are having bloating, the first thing you should be thinking is, I have low hydrochloric acid and I need to build that back up. And that's not by taking betaine HCl or anything. Like, you know, everyone's heard about celery juice. That's what you do, because it builds up your hydrochloric acid and it's the first line of defense. So again, you could be thinking completely in a direction right here. Both got it. So you could be thinking that you're, you know, you're looking at the problem. Yes, there's a digestive problem and it's showing up in the gut, but also you could be missing a very big sign that your immune system is actually really getting weak and time to really boost it up, right? So bring in zinc and vitamin C, a good ester C, bring in lysine, bring in some antivirals, because that'll start to boost you and build that hydrochloric acid. So, and also remove the foods that deplete it. So those are also important. And then the third thing that I would say that a lot of people miss, it's so hard to pick a third because I can think of like 6 things I want to say. But
I would say do the top 3, because I know each one of those that you touched on is what you and I, even if we weren't a coach, see on every Facebook, social media. Oh, I'm having bloating, or my mom, you know, doesn't feel well. She keeps getting nauseous when she eats.
Yeah.
These are all these things that people say are huge, as you said, huge indicators that something is brewing. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the next thing is going to be 2 things. I'm going to club them together because they're equally important, is brain fog and anxiety. And and they don't always show up together, but I'm saying if you have either or, brain fog or anxiety. So brain fog is, all right, if you're struggling to think, and of course a severe case is very severe and very clear, right? I'm talking about when it's not so clear, when you like are starting to forget where you put your keys, and it's not a sign of aging, because that's how we miss it, by thinking, oh, this is just a sign of getting older, I'm good. No, you're not supposed to forget your keys at any age, right? You're not supposed to have a hard time thinking. Like if you have to read a passage or a paragraph 3 times over just to get it, and even then you're like not clear and you walk away from it an hour later, you're like, what did I read? Those are signs of neurological viral illness going on in your body. And even if it's mild, it's good that you catch it and be aware of it when it's mild, so that you're not actually allowing something to get away under the radar. Because, you know, because these are symptoms, if you go to a doctor, they're going to be like, yeah, it's fine. You know, it's just aging. They'll assuage you and comfort you and not test any of it, because also there are no tests for these things. There's no test for fatigue, truly, especially mild fatigue. There's no test for bloating. There's no test for anxiety, and there's no test for brain fog. So you have to be the person who is in charge, right? So this information empowers you to know to pay attention. You could be accompanied with migraines and you think it's a period related migraine, right? Or a moon cycle related migraine. And I'll tell you that our cycles do not cause illness. Basically, when our cycles happen, and every woman, if you're a female coach and you're listening, you know that you're affected. At your cycle, something shows up. It does for every woman, right? Unless you've done the work to really heal a viral illness, because what happens is 80% of your immune system drops when you have a period, because it takes 80% of your body's energy to give you a bleeding. And when that happens, it pulls 80% of energy from your immune system. So everything that your immune system was managing when you don't have a period, it doesn't have the resources to do when you have a period. So symptoms show up. So those are underlying. They're not caused by the hormones. They are basically allowed to express because there's less support to the immune system. So I teach about these things. Like I'm teaching people and women how to take care of themselves, especially important if you're raising girls. And it happens to boys too, but way less and way different in men than it is in women, which is why at all these health conferences, 95% of the people are women. At IIN, 95% of the people are women. That's the reason, because women are more sick than men. And the reason women are more sick than men is because we have sensitive nervous systems, and our nervous systems are sensitive. It's a gift, actually, because we can pick up things, we can feel things that men typically cannot feel, and we're built differently. But when we have our period, which men don't have, we lose every month part of our immunity. It's why we're sicker, because every month we have to start over.
Let alone if we're in situations, and I think of the modern woman now who is either working two jobs or is, you know, is in a 9 to 5 or how high powered CEO, or they are the CEO of their
Or a
home.
single mother who's
Single mother.
trying to make it happen for her kids, right?
Yep.
It's the modern woman she is, I want to say, hail to the modern woman, because she's a beast, and I love
She's a warrior.
Totally. I mean, she has overcome so much, and she stands on the shoulders of all the women who came before her, who have paved the path to be here. And as a modern woman, not but and as a modern woman, you need to know how to protect yourself.
Yeah.
To me, I talk about learning the things you need to learn. It's basic life skill, because it's like you're walking into a toxic world between the chemtrails and the GMOs and the fluoride in the water and, you know, other medical interventions that we deal with, right? There's just a lot of poisoning going on for humans and the planet and the animals and plants. So we need to put on armor before we walk out the house, right? And that armor is your food, your supplements, your understanding of your body. And I don't think anyone can ignore this today, because we live in such a toxic world. And if, as a woman, if you are a mother, then even more you have to be aware, because you want to raise your children to be protected and to have, and to not, you know, the number of kids, high school kids that I work with who have to stay home and take sick days because they cannot focus, because they're depressed, they're anxious, and they are struggling at school. And the number of people who drop out of college, I have at least 25 women that I coach who are, you know, in their early 20s, 20 to 22, 23 years old, who are not in college, had to drop out because they were too sick to be there. And this is not something we often hear about, but it may be one of you listening may have had that experience. It may know someone who has, because you're coaches. I just want to say, like, it's pretty serious what we're dealing with on planet Earth, right? We are dealing with a lot of toxicity, but what we do know is that we can protect ourselves, we can get better, and we can live long, healthy lives if we adopt and understand these signs and things that we're talking about. And then I go into talking about the autoimmune cycle. So what is that? Like, what is the cycle? The cycle starts with, yes, I have symptoms. Yes, I'm struggling with such and such. I look for answers. I don't get them. I spend thousands of dollars on testing, and different doctors, alternative doctors, pay out of pocket. And my insurance is not covering any of it. And then you get into, you know, okay, so you finally find an answer, right? So you're like, okay, I'm going to try some celery juice. I'm going to try removing some heavy metals from my body. You understand that there's viruses and radiation and, you know, the heavy metals, pesticides, things that could be causing problems inside of your body. And you start to do the work. And then what happens is that you start to get better. And then you have a flare. And then, so it's sort of this, I call this a dance of detox. So it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. A lot of my work, if you've probably gathered by now, is based off of the teachings and the principles of medical medium. I totally want to give credit there. So it's from working with thousands of people, because I've worked with over 3,500 people in the last 6 years, and seen way more success than I did before I worked with these principles, because they actually do heal. I've used them myself. My father, who has rheumatoid arthritis, has healed massively from 30 years of being sick, is no longer taking prescription pain medication. He's on over-the-counter pain medication, which is just amazing. So I just want to share that we have to use this armor to protect ourselves as we walk through the world. And really, it is about influencing everybody around us, because when we do something different, it shifts for everyone, whether they're paying attention or not. We think or they're actually negating us, but they're still listening. And so everything you do to heal yourself and your clients, you are walking in a direction to help protect the earth and beyond. So it's really critical.
I think what's so interesting for anyone listening, whether they are like, oh yeah, I drink celery juice, or whether they are doing they're doing a version of medical medium, or whether they're doing a version of detox, or they're paleo, or it doesn't matter. Is, to me, what I really hear from you is, one, that we really have to empower our clients with knowing these warning signs. Two, when I ever talk about medical medium, I always say I have never found books that broke down how viruses go to different stages, how they get deeper into the body, and how they wreak havoc and to help connect these dots, how it affects these main core issues that people always have. And I think what's so important, even if somebody's listening and they are saying, oh, well, I don't do medical medium, that's XYZ.
Yeah.
But then step back and say, where in my practice am I actually talking about root causes, environmental root causes that get elevated, that get increased, that get to this place of disease? Because when somebody says, I don't understand, I just got diagnosed with, I have a tumor, it's like, well, that didn't just happen. So no matter who you work with, whether somebody decides to join your membership or they work with you, it's always to make sure that the guide who's guiding you to come back home to your intuition, to your knowledge, is arming you with not only the knowledge, but to be able to see, just as you said, why did that flare happen? What during that week of stress, fear, judgment of self, my lack of forgiveness, my emotions, and then also, what did I eat? What people were I was around, what triggered me, or was it actually detox? Because I know a lot of coaches struggle and they say, my client's gotten worse. And you and I, who are detox lovers, say, we love healing crisis. We encourage, I'm not saying that everyone wants to, but when you do that work, there's no way to pull out years of toxicity from air pollution, heavy metals that we breathe constantly, and not have some release and then say, oh, I've got this weird rash here.
Yep. So agreed. So there's so many thoughts in my head right now. So the first thing I want to address is, autoimmune. Technically, it means your body is attacking itself. And now we understand that actually there are viral pathogens attacking our cells, which makes more sense because antibodies show up in our blood work all the time. We have thyroid antibodies, we have cancer antibodies, and we can identify those on a blood test, which is awesome because, we can find the antibodies. We only create antibodies to pathogens. We don't create antibodies to ourselves. So that's, I think, a really empowering thought, because if you think your body's attacking itself, you're going to be like, I can't fix that. My body's against me. Your body's never against you. Your body loves you, first of all. Second of all, with this autoimmune cycle and taking it further, so you go into a flare, as Rachel said, understanding why you're flaring is so critical. And then the offshoot of the autoimmune cycle is the adrenal cycle, which is such an important aspect of this work, because So we have 56 blends of adrenaline, and we have 20 blends that we use for special occasions and 36 blends that are for everyday use. And adrenaline is not bad for us. I've written a lot of articles about this. I have a whole program on adrenaline and how it can be, how it's important for us, but also how it's so off course today in all of us, because adrenaline, the production of toxic corrosive adrenaline that comes from all the worst stuff that we can experience, whether it's heartbreak, whether it's financial loss, whether it's a loss of a loved one, moving, divorce, betrayal, abandonment, all the worst stuff, guilt and shame. And there can be massive events that can cause PTSD and a lot of adrenal surges, or they could be little things that go on every day because you're struggling to make ends meet, or your child is sick and you have to deal with that on a daily basis. And it's not a big thing. Maybe it was a big thing when it happened, but the day-to-day life of dealing with that is just stressful. Look at pandemic. It's day-to-day stressful. And there's some days where we spike in our stress because we heard some news that was like, oh my God, are they doing that? And then you don't know if it's true. So you're wondering, and that's stressful. So we live in this chronic state of stress, chronically producing low-grade adrenaline in our bodies all the time. And the toxic corrosive adrenaline, which comes from the worst stuff that we feel, not the good adrenaline, will feed pathogens. Will feed the bugs, it'll feed strep, it'll feed EBV, it will feed shingles. The pathogens that are most susceptible to stress are shingles and strep. And not that EBV isn't, but when people say to me, oh, my emotions made me sick, your emotions created adrenaline, which fed the bugs, which gave you more symptoms that made you more sick. And it's always that. Your thoughts alone can never make you have symptoms. If you didn't have a virus, your thoughts alone would never create a neurological symptom. That comes from viruses. So this is the part that I want everyone to really understand, because I talk about this topic more than I talk about any other topic, because it is the most misunderstood topic there is, because it explains flares. Yes, you can have a flare from eating the wrong food. Like you ate something and you didn't know it had eggs in it. You could have a flare from that. You could have a flare from walking outside and your neighbor just sprayed pesticides all over the yard and you breathe that in. You could have a flare from that. But most of the time, the hidden source of our flares constantly is adrenaline, our own adrenaline. So learning to manage our emotions, doing the deeper healing work, focusing on it's not just about meditation, although that can be a part of it, but it's understanding. And really, I teach people how to become aware of when they're surging adrenaline, how the fine nuances of what your body's actually telling you. And it's an art to learn it. And once you do, oh my God, you'll know what to do in that moment.
Do you remember, and guys, this is just on a personal note of how long I have known this woman, and we've never met. How long I've known her.
I know, in person.
Do you remember when I was in Connecticut I came to Connecticut to teach, and yes. I called you frantic because at that time I was having a lot of angioedema, these unexplained swellings on the face. And they were for years debilitating. And I was very fortunate always to work with unbelievable practitioners, doctors that are what I call collaborators, open-minded, want to play out, okay, what could be the reason this is happening? And they geek out on what I call that co-collaboration, whether you have other team players or not. And so I called you because my lip had blown up and I had to teach that day. And you right away said to me, you're really stressed. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm not stressed. I overcome everything. I am defined by the fact that I can push through. And you said, sometimes when you've pushed yourself, and I was like, pushed myself? I always push myself. What's she talking about? And I could hear my inner voice, my inner critic. And you took me through a meditation, a visualization that brought me to the point of crying, not just tears of who I am now, but crying tears that were so repressed and pushed down, of fear that I was not enough, all these interior thoughts and cellular memory. That was probably about 6 years ago or 7.
Yeah.
Maybe even, probably 6 years ago. And I tell everyone that because fast forward to one, being able to work with you to build your business, two, being able to hear your amazing rants, your amazing passion, and how your brain does work in helping to demystify how simple it can be to have a baseline quiz in your head that says, okay, so I know I'm stressed. Where is this coming from? Or is it an internal stress that I'm not even conscious of because it's such a habit for me?
Yeah,
And you really taught me what you always teach, is this forgiveness, because in that forgiveness and the compassion for self, it's being able to rewire how that brain works, so that when the adrenaline comes up, and it still does for me. I mean, I think I said to you last month, like, damn, I pushed myself into a flare. But I knew that it wasn't because the air blew. I knew that it was a very stressful time, but I knew that I didn't catch myself to say, oh no, Rach, honey, you're about to go into overdrive because this is how you handle stress. And I did it, and not to sit in shame and blame, which I've done my whole life about having an autoimmune, the guilt of passing that on to my children, the guilt of not feeling my best, and the years of having energy, but not having present energy of just, and I just want to share that with everyone, because it's not always just, we think, oh, this one diet, this one protocol, this one supplement. It's helping people, not even our clients. It's helping people to know that if we slow down enough, we will see that vicious cycle, and we will see it play out in our family, in the people that we choose. We will see it in everywhere, so that we can be armed with, what do I do when it does fall apart?
Right. I mean, look, there's so much re-education that we need to be having about health, right? Because there is information out there that isn't correct. Even in the alternative world, not all of it is correct. I mean, I was in the allopathic world from 3 months till the age of 28. And then I learned about the alternative world, and I went to school, and I went to IIN, and it just opened up for me in a big way. And I've been in that world for almost, 12 years. More than 12 years, 12, 13 years. Yeah. So finding out what will help us, that information we now have on this planet. We have real answers about how to heal. And there is no one protocol for anybody. There isn't. Even in one body of work, there's like thousands of different ways to, all the thousands of clients I have, nobody has the same protocol. Everyone has a different plan. And for some people, when the first call that I have with them, that call is about, oh my God, like you were abused as a kid. And we're not talking about supplements and food. We're talking about something else. And that's what they need actually to, some people need that first before they have the capacity to even hear me talk about food and supplements.
Or even the capacity to be able to detoxify. And that's why when people say to me, how do you still have gallstones? And maybe this is a great place for us to even soften it and even end, is they're like, but you've done so many detoxes. You went to detox schools. You know so much. And I always say it because these are memories. And it's also in how I operate and how I react. Yes, it is the bile flow. I know that from a test. It is low HCl. I know those from tests. But to not continue the sickness is in learning how to go back. And you've taught me this, and you preach this all day and all night, is to be honest with self on where this is coming from. Then to be honest in the day-to-day, like you said, where is that coming up? And then to look at life and say, where am I recreating this? Where am I living in victimhood? Where are all these things that keep feeding into the stones, the lack of bile, all these things that are the things that we're like, there's no way to fix it. It's not, as you said, this one way.
There's not one way. And the softer, more sort of metaphysical side of things is that we carry wounding in our soul. Our soul lives in our brain, right? When you look at, how many times have we heard, well, I looked into her eyes and it was the windows to her soul, because our soul lives right behind here. And our heart, right? Our heart is our compass and the seat of compassion. And the word compass is inside the word compassion. Really, so the heart leads, and we can have wounding, we can have brokenheartedness for real in our hearts. Then we have our will and our strength. And the three things metaphysically keep us going. And if one is really wounded, the other two are there. And if all two are really wounded, there's one that will always guide us. So it's like a check and balance that's built into our system. But also, like you were saying about memories, yes, we don't come in as a clean slate. When we are born, we carry memories in our soul with us from wherever we have been before, wherever that might be. And not only that, not only do we carry the memory of our own soul, we also carry the memory of our lineage, because our mother, whoever our mother is, through her placenta passed on her viruses and heavy metals and poisons and old illnesses and miasms, which is the history, like in your lineage of illness, can also be passed on through this mechanism. So there's a lot of different ways in which, so we carry like these two types of memory. We carry our lineage memory and we carry our soul memory. And it's so important to recognize, because sometimes what we're dealing with emotionally, spiritually, mentally is not from even this life. It's coming from somewhere else. And so what you're saying, and I'll refer back to what you said earlier, is giving ourselves a space. We have to carve out space. And I'm not going to use the term self-care or self-love. I'm just going to say that out of just pure compassion, just sit, give yourself space, however you carve it. There's a bazillion ways to carve space. Carve your space to give you time to really feel into where things may be coming from. You know what the sources are. So sit and let your intuition inform you. And that's why I go by intuitive medicine woman, because my goal is to ignite every woman's intuition into massive empowerment of herself.
I know we could talk for 10 more hours. And guys, I know you would be like, don't you guys need to get up and pee? We'd be like, no.
We would not.
This talk that Muneeza and I talk, these are our phone conversations when we're having our girlfriend chat, even versus work chat, because in this world where there is so much information, and please hear this, because whether you love one principle or whether you don't love medical medium, that's not what this is about. It's about people coming back to their intuition of knowing, I know this is going on with me. Just like a mom says, I know my child has an earache, but the test doesn't show it. And the mom pleads, please let me come in. I'm telling you, my child. And you go in and they're like, wow, so crazy. You were just here 2 days ago. And I know this from my own experiences. And that's why I'm so blessed to have people like Muneeza, to have hired doctors who were open always to listen to gut intuition, specialists. And I say this from coming from having asthma and being on life support and food allergies and all these nasty viruses, pathogens, bugs since a very young age, is please, guys, when you are trying to navigate. If you're stuck, go to Muneeza, go to her website, watch her videos, because when she says self-care, she gardens, she cooks with her children, she juices with her children, she brings them into this massive self-care without even saying self-care. And that is how you always tap back in. So tell everyone where they can find you, and so they can go stalk watch your videos.
Okay, thank you. MuneezaAhmed.com, M as in Mary, U, N as in Nancy, E-E-Z-A, A-H, M as in Mary, E as in Edward, D as in David.com. That's my website on my house on the internet. And you can find me on Instagram as Muneeza Medical Intuitive. You can find me on Facebook, Health with Muneeza. And yeah, so check it out. Follow if you're called to. I would love to support you. And you know, if you're a coach and you want to learn more about the business building experience, we can talk about that too, because I know that I've worked with practitioners as well. And yeah, and Rachel and I are always jamming and up to some amazing stuff, and we have more amazing stuff coming, so I'm excited.
And guys, I will just end this, is that go read Muneeza's blogs. They are packed with information, packed on information that she has shared. And if you are scared about ever going live, shooting videos, Muneeza is the person to watch, because she showed up every day, even when she got bit. Oh God, when you got
the spider bite, crazy spider bite.
Crazy spider bite, showed up when she was not feeling great, shows up all the time, and is of service always for her big why and her mission. And I don't think we need to recap that. So please make sure that you follow her. Please let us know if you have any questions on where to find her. And with that being said, tap into your intuition, and we will see you later. Peace out, guys.
Thank you, Rachel.